A very good afternoon to all industry members and my colleagues. Thank you for tuning in to the fifth episode of the online webinar series brought to you by ILEA Middle East. My name is Saif, and today we will be discussing about the newly launched event guidelines, the government support, and the way forward for the relaunch of events. Before we start, I'd like to thank Events Case and DXB Live for helping us out with today's virtual event. Today's discussion is divided into two sessions. The first session, we will be discussing about the newly introduced guidelines, government support, the relaunch, and the way forward. In the second session, we will be more discussing about health and safety, guidelines compliance, and how ILEA Middle East has represented the industry to various government entities in the UAE. So without any further delay, I'll go ahead and introduce our panel to you. Today, our panel, we have Issam Kazim, CEO of Dubai Corporation for Tourism and Commerce Marketing, Dubai. We have Khalid Al Hamadi, Senior Vice President, DXB Live, Dubai World Trade Center. And joining us live is Majid Al Suwaidi, Managing Director for Dubai Studio City, Dubai Media City, Dubai Production City, Head of In5, and Alexander Williams, Director, Future Economy, Department of Economic Development, Dubai Government. Hi Sam, hi Khalid, how are you guys?
Hi Steve.
Hi.
Majid, Alexander, thank you for sparing time and coming on live.
My pleasure.
Issam,
Most welcome.
my first question to you would be, could you please update us on the guidelines for the events and exhibitions, and what should the industry be looking forward?
I think, first of all, thank you guys for hosting us and giving us a chance to speak to the industry. Obviously, as you can imagine, the events industry is a huge and a very important pillar and a proposition for Dubai as a destination. Over the past few weeks, we've been actually working on introducing events back again, really piloting different things, testing it out. And given the new circumstances that we find ourselves in, we're very excited that we're going to start opening up now, accepting applications for events to come forward and stuff. So we're very excited about this opportunity. And as per the guidelines, with anything else that you're seeing nowadays with the COVID situation, I think we should just ensure that we're staying abreast of all the updates and all the changes that are happening, because we're making sure that we're staying as close as possible to the updates and the news and the developments, and ensuring that we're updating the industry as soon as possible as well. So yes, we are excited about opening it up again, but we need to be cautious. We need to be agile and nimble to be able to adapt to any changes within the landscape as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How does Dubai Tourism, Dubai government support the events industry? What can we expect going forward?
I think one thing is about keeping the industry as close as possible to the dynamic environment that we're in, ensuring that we are meeting regularly with the key stakeholders within the government departments to ensure that we are always updating the changes that are happening. And also, given the fact how important this industry is, making sure that we're listening and talking to the industry players. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones who are putting events on show for Dubai. And so it's very important for us to understand where they're at what stage, what questions that they have, and do our best to ensure that we're giving them the answers and updates as soon as possible. But again, like I said, it is very different than where we were at before. It's not the same as where you put the new regulations out there and it stays as is. It is a dynamic environment. So our role now becomes fundamentally important to ensure that if there are any struggles that they're facing, we're communicating those struggles upwards, trying to find solutions that we can actually resolve as soon as possible, but at the same time, ensuring that we're updating those regulations as soon as possible and keeping the industry abreast of the changes.
Perfect. Yeah, that's the way forward for sure. Khalid, I'd like to ask you, I know you've executed a couple of events in the past few months at the Trade Center. So can you just give us your experience, share your experience with the viewers as to what were the guidelines implemented in terms of social distancing and the policies, the hygiene policies, and the health and safety efforts?
See, I mean, safe, in general, events are a safe environment compared to other type of social gathering. So basically, the organizers will make sure to, he maintain social distancing. The hygiene standard at the venue is elevated also, so it's safe for everyone to come in. And yes, we had some successful events happened recently, and we've got a lot of compliments. And honestly saying, I never heard about any negative comments in terms of putting any visitor at risk or even performance on the stage at risk from performance point of point of view. So it was executed relatively well. It's not only from our side, also it's from all the government key stakeholders. We've seen a lot of government entities coming together, checking the site, making sure all the rules and regulations are implemented. Primarily, there are two things, which is basically the hygiene standard of the venue, and the second thing is making sure the layout of the events maintain social distancing. I think these are the two key factors to make sure the environment is controlled, and this is across the whole journey. Yeah? So you can't, for example, put 1,000 people in a 4,000 square meter hall, and then your foyer is very small. Yeah, so you create congested. So from that perspective, we made sure even our hospitality offering is designed in a way that we maintain social distancing even when the people is ordered and the hygiene standard is elevated in the venue.
Yeah. No, I was there at the trade center, and I personally went through the journey, and I felt it was great, and all the guidelines which DTCM had basically given forward were fully implemented. The social distance policies were fully in control, and it felt like the new normal, which is the social distancing, didn't really matter actually. Everyone enjoyed the event, and it seemed pretty functioning absolutely the way it's supposed to be. So the element, the substance was there. That's great. Majid, my question to you is, could you share with us some numbers in terms of creative companies that are housed in the sectors that you basically head? Because Media City, Studio City, and Production City have the highest number of creative companies, event management companies, consultancies housed in your particular business community. So how would you define your relationship? And as everyone knows that COVID-19 has impacted a lot of business, especially the small and the medium. What's your opinion about the situation?
So first of all, thank you for having me on this virtual seminar. And number two, I think, as you rightly mentioned, today I think Dubai Media City houses a lot of the creative industry companies within the city and within the country, generally speaking, if we talk in general. We have more than approximately, if we take only these two sectors, the event and entertainment, I think approximately more than 600-700 companies have been with us or are housed within our creative cities that we run. We've seen quite a number of companies that came up, and requesting support over the past period. And I think this shows that people are taking this, with a pinch of salt, and hoping that things will turn out to be to the positive. Looking at it now, I think there is a chance for companies to rebound. Maybe they need to require that they come up with creative ways of trying to solve the problem with or the issue with the major events that have been cancelled or have been postponed. But generally speaking, I think people are hoping that things will come up to be good by the end of the year.
Absolutely. And I also know, Majid, that you and the senior management of TCOM Group have been very, very agile in supporting your business partners and making sure that everyone is taken care of during these harsh times. Could you just share with us what measures have you taken to support your business partners in the communities?
So I think since the inception, I think there were so many different things that were put on the ground to support companies in general that are located within our zone. So and the event industry is no different. These support turned out from being trying to work around their payment schedules, trying to work around what else can we do for them within businesses, trying to really launch new services that could support them in getting more businesses as we go through. And today, as an industry and with a very huge number of companies that are within the zone, we are sometimes in a situation that is a little bit more complex than a very simple, one way fits all kind of strategy. So we tend to look at each company, and then we look at each industry, and then we look at the broader industry also to support to support these companies and to give them some kind of leeway to be able to operate until the end of the year, where everyone is expecting, or hopefully everyone is expecting, that businesses will rebound and businesses will start covering, this lost period that has happened in the last 4 months or the last 6 months.
True. Fully agree. Alexander,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you, what initiatives has DED and Dubai government put in place together for the business communities to manage the impact that's caused by COVID-19?
Thank you for having me, Alexander. So I think one of the key initiatives that we did even before COVID-19 was that we launched our business community engagement program. And that program is a very effective sort of like a continuous feedback loop between government and the private sector. We work with 27 business groups. We know all the challenges by sector, by groups. We went down to each sector to analyze and feedback, and got this feedback back to the executive council. The engagement is extremely effective. We share with them government plans. So for during the COVID-19, what we did was, for the reopening of the economy and to get feedback, we had individualized group sessions. We checked with each group, for example, the food group, the events group, the shopping malls group, the retail group, to get exactly what are the challenges from the business side and from the market side. And from there, we developed the stimulus package. And we can see what DD has done is that we coordinated with all the government departments to see what fees, fines can be reduced quarter-on-quarter basis. So our tools were to look at the supply side, what governments can do to reduce the cost burden on businesses. For example, we launched the e-trader scheme. We exempted permits from sales offers, 12-month installment with 25% only upfront. These will be reviewed at the end of third quarter before we extend the waivers of fees until the end of the year. The main point is that we only can control the supply side. We make it easy for businesses to survive. However, of course, we work with other partners to ensure that the demand side also comes back. So the reopening protocols to ensure confidence of the economy. At the end of the day, people must feel comfortable coming back to events. We cannot force them, but we can influence them to say that the events are safe, sound. Please come back. We love to see you in the exhibitions and conferences, and that's what we are hoping to see. So from a Dubai economy point of view, we try to minimize the cost of businesses, fees and fines, and these will be reviewed on a quarter-to-quarter basis.
Great. That's good to know, Alexander, because I think our community, our industry needs to be basically, be informed about all the measures that you guys have taken into consideration in terms of relief measures. And I think through this virtual event, I think the industry members are hearing out, and they would shortly approach the different groups that you basically run to, ask you for some kind of help, some kind of relief that basically you already have in place that can be forwarded to them. Thank you. Isam, my question to you is, Dubai has always set itself apart. It's always, been the creative hub of thinking forward, and the great approach that DCTCM has put in place was to basically have Dubai Summer Surprises as a pilot project.
Yes.
To basically, have a look and feel and launch the events. And I think you've been successful. I'd like to congratulate you that there have been events and trade centers played a great part in that.
Absolutely.
In terms of ensuring that, events still happen during the COVID-19 era, keeping all the safety measures, and there were no complaints, no cases coming up. So can you tell us something about this thought process?
I think, look, the credit goes to the leadership within the city itself, and also all of the key stakeholders within the government departments, as well as the private sector as well. Working together hand in hand, making sure that all these strict measures are in place. Dubai obviously does not sit back and try to react, but they're actually very proactive in the measures that they put into place. Because again, like I said before, the events proposition is hugely important for Dubai. So we wanted to make sure that we don't discount the hygiene factor now, which has become an integral part of the safety and security that people are looking for.
Sure.
So we made sure that working with the right governments in place, making sure that we have the right processes in place and procedures in place, making sure that the right entities, organizations such as Dubai World Trade Center, when they were hosting events, that they have those right measures in place. Event organizers are aware of those things and they're practicing it as well. And also educating the individuals within the city who are going to be attending these events also about the strict measures that they need to take. Because at the end of the day, it goes across every single person. So you see the comedy show with, for example, Jimmy Carr at Dubai Opera. That was done amazingly well. We sold out 3 shows there. There was a Sonu Nigam concert that happened at Dubai World Trade Center. So there are different events, different concerts, different shows that were put out in different venues to really test these out and really do it in a very tight and well measured process. And as my colleague Khalid mentioned, it was very well received. People were very excited and happy to be back out there live at events as well. But at the same time, I think the onus goes back also to the event organizers to understand that when the AI conference, which was organized by the Dubai World Trade Center, took place, it was a hybrid model between a virtual as well as a physical presence as well. And I think those are the kind of things that event organizers now need to take into account, because during crisis, in any crisis, there are new opportunities that come up. And I think we need to also be very well aware. Our plans have to be done in such a strategic way where you actually have several models that in case there is any change in the new regulations that come up, you are nimble enough to be able to make those shifts and changes without really impacting the experience on yourself or the guests that are going to be visiting these events as well.
True. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well said and well planned, I would say. What sets Dubai apart from the other global cities in relation to opening up of events, given that many of the other cities still have restrictions in place for events? How have you planned this?
Again, this I will have to give the credit to every single person who's working within the crisis committee, including the frontline workers who have been working tirelessly to ensure that we have the strictest measures in place. We have an unbelievable amount of tests that are being done on a regular basis to ensure that we can isolate and really monitor those cases separately without impacting the industry, and again, not discounting the hygiene and safety measures that need to be there. So I think it's hats off to them. It's their effort and it's their tireless work that's gone into this that's making our life in a way easier and simpler, because then we can plan better accordingly. And I think a lot of times people are talking about the numbers of cases, this and that. I think what's important to focus on is the number of tests that are being run, because that's almost unprecedented. And then also when it looks at the recovery cases, you know what I mean? And those are the kind of things that people need to be focused on and looking at. There's a lot of positives out there. We are the number one in the region when it comes to the tests and recoveries that we're looking at, and within the top 10 globally. So this is something that we cannot discount. And again, it's all credit to the efforts that are being put in by the crisis committee and every single stakeholder that's working within that space.
Yeah. These are major positives, and these are major achievements, which I think because everyone's stressed and the industry has been closed for past 6 months, people don't seem to be focusing on that, and they just seem to be focusing on the rise of cases. But yeah, definitely these are certain positives and these are achievements which Dubai has achieved, which basically have to be showcased, and people should be addressing these and focusing more on the positives. Khalid, how do you see the events at DWTC picking up in the coming months?
See, I mean, yes, we have a roster for the coming months, and with a mix of live events which attracts consumers and business events which is happening, and just adding to what also Assam was saying, Dubai always used to take the driving seats. I mean, the city always proactively has planned for crisis and react very fast when it happens. Yeah, and we've seen this obviously what has happened during this pandemic. With regard to the events, at the beginning of the pandemic, we thought we will see the first events in October, September, and we've been in one of these live webinars during the beginning of the pandemic, but I think the first event happens in July, actually, at Trade Center, which was an excellent message. The good part of it is that it's been executed very well and in a safe manner.
Perfect. So yeah, actually, as always, Dubai breaking the norms and going ahead, and I think that's a proven fact with the first event happening in July, where everyone was expecting things would only move on in October. That's true. Majid, my question for you is, how does your business communities support the freelancers? Do you have anything designed for the freelancers? I've heard that you have something known as gofreelance.com, but can you give us more details about this particular entity? Majid, I can't hear you. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, it was a second. The mistake that always happens when I was saying definitely there is a program that we've come up with that we started approximately 6 to 7 months ago, which is basically called Go Freelance, which was in fact it's a pre-COVID kind of a program that we started, understanding that there is an evolution within the industry that requires that a lot of these independent professionals get the opportunity to be able to work without the constraint of being part of an entity or a business. Since then, we've got more than 1,000 plus freelancers in the media, tech, and education sector. Each one was looking at a specific area within the sector of the industry that they see an opportunity for them to freelance in. With the turn of COVID, I think this has become even more prominent and given people the opportunity not only to be, either if their company started to close down or their company is shrinking in size, that didn't stop them from moving from there to becoming their own professional suppliers. And I think what people also see is that there is a lot of merits towards that. So this Go Freelance program has been a very good program that showed people that the opportunity is always available. Dubai, as Sam said, and that everyone's saying, is there is a huge immense of opportunities that are available for people to come and take advantage of, and there are so many different ways for you to be able to take these advantages, and so Go Freelance is one of that. It's interesting also that we found that the product itself was so much appealing to also a lot of the production sector because of the nature of their business, where you've got production companies are operating not for the full year. In fact, they operate for a project base. So they earlier had to hire people for the full period of time, for a full year, with the salaries, with everything, whereas they wanted them to take people only when they require them. So that gave the flexibility for people to be hiring people in certain projects, and for the freelancers to work on many different kinds of projects as they see fit for their business or for themselves. So it has been a very, very interesting opportunity going forward, and I think this in itself helped us a lot in making this product even more prominent going forward.
Perfect. No, I fully understand, Majid, and I appreciate your vision and the senior management's vision, because I know you've always been supportive of freelancers, and In5, which you basically head, is a clear example of new small businesses, incubations coming up, and then expanding and down the line becoming large business entities. So it's a great idea, and we feel that
and it's also safe. There is one also very important thing, and if you notice the life cycle of businesses within our group today, it starts from them being, like you have rightly mentioned, M5 as being a small incubated business, just an idea, to the multinational. So each step of the way, there is a product that will help this individual with his specific requirements. And accordingly, I think this gives a lot of flexibility for people to do business, or even to take the risk of going into this kind of business where in the past it was too expensive or it was too cumbersome for them to do that. Now they don't need to do that, and they don't need to worry about that part because it is taken care of. We have taken in mind that this individual is maybe he's bootstrapping, or maybe he has very limited amount of funds, and we wanted to support him by giving him the right tools so that he can operate and grow and accordingly be able to operate a full entity in the future.
Perfect. Yeah, hats off to you for that. Assam, I know that you've been very close to our industry and talking about freelancers. I've seen you on a webinar recently that you were addressing freelancers and all. I know you work very closely. Can you just share about your thought process of being so closely connected with our industry as to the vision that you have for the industry?
Sure. I think if you look at the kind of events that at Dubai Tourism, whether it's the Dubai Festival Retail Establishment and others have been organizing and arranging, what we do is, from one side to support the industry, we have an arm that's called Dubai Calendar, where we try to push, promote, and support as much as we can to give exposure to a lot of these events that are taking place in Dubai. But at the same time, with Dubai Festival and Retail Establishment, with the events that we're launching, first of all, we have Dubai Summer Surprises, which we just spoke about now, where we piloted and tested all of these events coming into the new norm of doing or conducting business. We have Shopping Festival, which is like one of the most important shows for Dubai as a city, and has been so for many years. But then we also have a lot of new events that keep coming up. With Dubai Fitness Challenge just around the corner now.
Exactly.
And over there, it's a platform and a chance for a lot of people to organize events, to put health-related events, well-being-related events that brings the community together, that brings the industry together, again, for a benefit that's much bigger than just an event in Dubai, but it's for the health and well-being of the individuals that live within Dubai. Obviously for us, Dubai Fitness Challenge is right around the corner, and we're now well underway of planning it and looking at the operational execution of the events as well. But it's again another opportunity and another chance where we really bring in a lot of people during that period of time, where we leverage a lot of the expertise and experience that are available in the city to really put out an event that lives up to Dubai's standards, and at the same time give people a chance and opportunity to be a part of something that's much bigger than just an event that goes on for a specific period of time.
True. No, I know there are a lot of RFPs going out from your end. So yeah, we're on the move. That I can assure you for sure. Alexander, I have a very important question for you, which I'm sure a lot of events companies are right now looking forward. As you have some stimulus package initiatives in place, and I'd like to know, like, what are these packages that you have, and how can our industry members apply for some kind of relief measures?
Yeah, a good question. I think the stimulus packages that we have is universal for all enterprises that have a trade license in Dubai. So it's something targeted, broad-based. There could be specific relief packages or incentives to help specific sectors like the hotel sector. I think the BTCM has announced that. But in an overall, Dubai economy's approach is to help all trade licenses that it has to relieve their pain points during this pandemic. For certain sectors, as I mentioned, there are certain relief packages. So this is something that DD is focusing on. How to avail your companies for this package? That you need to, of course, talk to your account managers in the DED. There's DED services and the DED service centers. All the staff there are equipped to advise you on how to benefit from these packages. And a lot of companies have done that, and they can approach us, and we will gladly help them to see what fees can be reduced, to restructure their fees for the coming months, and what permits they can look at to talk to other departments, and we can facilitate that conversation. So help is being proactively provided, and all Ilya companies or any events companies or any companies for that matter should do is to approach us, and we'll be very happy to see how we can facilitate their fee restructuring in terms of renewals and fines.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. So that clears a lot of things, like all ILEA Middle East members. And for that matter, even if you're not an ILEA Middle East member, do send in your request to us and we will connect you with DED to get in touch on and get more information on the stimulus packages, reliefs, measures, waivers, fee reductions, whatever offered by DED. In this way, ILEA Middle East can basically move forward to supporting the members, ILEA members, and the wider community. So please do send us your requests on admin@ilea-me.com, and we will make sure that we respond as quick as possible and with the relevant reply that you're looking for. Alexander, one more question for you is, I know DED is engaging with a lot of business groups. How do you engage? What's your mode of engagement? And how do you basically look at solving their challenges or their problems and giving them solutions for business sustainability?
Yeah. So as you know, many of the business groups that we deal with are actually legalized by Dubai Chambers. So we work with groups that have been formally formed. We talk to the leaders of the group, the board members. We engage them because from a Dubai economic point of view, and I think many of the cultural practices here, we take a very personal approach. We talk to the leadership of the group, whether they are in the manufacturing, the food group, any group that has a board membership. We talk to them. Some of this feedback that we receive are very well analyzed. They give us feedback that has evidence. We want evidence from the market. We say that, okay, for example, we resolve issue with the gold traders, B2B traders. We put up an analysis paper to the VAT authorities and we waive the B2B VAT charges. So this is something that we can do and help you resolve, even at the UAE level, any of the business challenges. Our role is to get feedback on a constant basis. We also try to help them improve their management. Many of the business groups are quite loose, and we tell them that in order to gain momentum and to gain credibility in the community, you need to structure yourselves. You need to have professional management. And thankfully, since we launched the program, our business groups have matured, and some of them are as good as some of the business groups you can find in the UK, in Singapore, and the developed countries. And I always say that a mature economy has a very strong private sector voice, an organized private sector voice. And this is something that we want to cultivate together with Dubai Chambers and with all the regulators. I think all the regulators should see it in their interest to build the strong private sector voice to give us considered feedback. So this is one of the key initiatives that we have launched. We also have launched excellence initiatives for the business groups, meaning to say that for groups to improve their excellence performance, we try to give them the tools, the journey to be where they are supposed to be in the top league of organizations that can serve their members well. And of course, the fourth way we try to do is to get them to help us to restructure the industries, give us feedback on where inefficiencies can be corrected, how to be a more competitive industry sector. For example, we are working with the supply chain logistics group to see how they can embrace more technology to be more efficient. We are introducing the concept of industry transformation maps to help these industries transform to higher value-added activities, digitalization, using blockchain technologies to improve their services to their community and to the industry and lift the overall value add for the Dubai economy as a whole. These are some of the work that we do and we are pursuing in the next coming years.
Great. No, it's absolutely good to know that, you have all these initiatives in place and it's good to have this session, I believe, through this discussion. I'm sure a lot of our industry members would get to know what all DED has to offer. And I'm sure that shortly they will approach you because a lot of industry members at the moment are suffering due to the financial impact caused by COVID-19. So I'm sure we look forward for, bridging the gap between DED and our industry members. Majid, my question for you is, what are the opportunities your business community has for our sector, and what do you think we need to be prepared for?
Well, definitely, I think there is a very important factor that the companies today within the sector have to evolve and to basically change a lot of their earlier practices to accommodate the new norm that we could say. And definitely there is opportunities for them to be able to be in the right place with the right setup, ready for the new cycle or the new wave that hopefully will happen by either by the end of this year or hopefully by the beginning of next year, where a lot of companies will try as much as possible to recoup any opportunities that they have lost in the past, and they would require the support of companies or event companies in this case to help showcase either that the business or their business sector is doing well, or help in showcasing what opportunities they have to sell to their suppliers. So we are here to support them across the board. There are a lot of opportunities that they can tap into. They can tap into a lot of the business setup or the logistical requirements for them to start their businesses and be ready. We provide with a wide array of setup types that will help them in making the right choice and make them ready to hold to basically offer their services going forward.
Right. Perfect. No, that's good to know, and I'm sure everyone's getting a lot of information through this session. So it's good to know that.
And it's definitely worth mentioning that, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, the idea of setting up the business is not as it was before in the past. It is very simple, straightforward, and it will accomplish everyone basically, from a guy who wants to just freelance to a guy who wants to actually go and develop a production company for film, for instance. So all of the networks, all the logistics requirements, all the setup requirements, all the additional services that he would require to do a good job in his business are available for him to be able to tap into within our zone.
Amazing. So you cover everything from point A to the last point, so which is great.
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Good. Isam, talking about the future, how do you see this event space evolving as we move into the era of social distancing at events? Now people need to understand that it's not going to be the same how it was before. So how do you think, can you explain this so that people have a better understanding?
I think, look, I mean, it's very important for people to realize that at least for the near future, things have definitely changed, right? And I always like to look at the glasses half full side of things. And I think there's a big opportunity over here. And the opportunity is that we've always spoken about, prior to COVID, we've always spoken about how technology can play a big role in event space going forward and so on and so forth. But COVID, I think, kind of fast-tracked a lot of that for people. So people started to, during the lockdown, when it was a complete lockdown, we had, from the events industry, a lot of people putting on amazing shows that they would broadcast on their own social media channels, on YouTube and other platforms as well, because they didn't want basically the show to stop. They wanted to make sure that they, keep in check and keep practice and keep, connected with their followers and viewers. But at the same time, it was great because they also wanted to give something to the community where they would keep people entertained during this period where people found themselves maybe a bit depressed to not be out there. So this was an amazing way of communicating and putting that positive energy out there. And I think once we started to slowly loosen up a little bit and started to have events and piloting events, it gave people a chance to say, like, look, some people are still not comfortable. They're still a bit cautious, which is fair enough. Yeah. But rather than them missing out on the shows and events that are taking place, why not give them a chance to also tune in online? So I think that in itself is an opportunity where people need to capitalize on. Even when things start to become easier and a bit more freedom in movement, I think this opportunity of engaging with far more than just the people who are physically there is a great chance that people should leverage and should definitely look into and should definitely start implementing now, and which will come into play to their advantage as the days go on. And I think those are just some simple examples of those measures. But again, when we look at it from a travel and tourism perspective, I know that a lot of people now, safety and security of a destination that they choose is important, but hygiene measures are very important as well. So for us, we were very active at Dubai Tourism side to ensure that all of the best practices that are being put into place by the city are being showcased as much as possible, communicated as much as possible, which gave us the chance, and we're very proud to say that we received the World Travel and Tourism Council's Safe Cities accreditation. And at the same time, we worked with our colleagues from the industry, from DED, our own inspectors, with Dubai municipality inspectors, and put a special inspection process in place where the inspectors visit different sites, whether it's venues for events or hotels or any of the mass visitation touch points, where these inspectors make sure that there's a checklist that they go through and give them a Dubai assured stamp. So visitors going to these places feel at the utmost ease and comfort, knowing that this place has been checked. And it's not about achieving it that one time, but ensuring that whenever these inspectors are visiting again and again, they are maintaining those strict measures. So every 2 weeks, there's a visit that takes place to ensure that this Dubai assured stamp is continuously being put into practice.
Yeah, these are some great audit measures you guys have put in place, actually, to make sure that the quality is really controlled. And yes, we all are very familiar. We keep reading in the news that these particular inspections have happened and all that, so people are on their toes. So again, it's all about the social responsibility that everyone carries.
100%, because what you want to avoid is, it's great to put these measures in place, and it's great to put the best practices in place, but it only takes one mistake to set everything back again. So that's why I keep saying that the onus is across everyone, from the government to the private sector to the individuals who are visiting these events as well, because it's very, very important for them to take these things seriously, so that it is for the best for the entire community across the board.
Yeah, no, definitely. And having leaders like you and Khalid, who are personally involved in the entire transaction, and I've seen you guys personally on site as well, it makes a lot of difference. It feels that the leadership is fully involved in ensuring that the city is safe.
But this goes back again to the same thing, to show that trust and that confidence. When the AI event took place at Dubai World Trade Center, even the Crown Prince Sheikh Hamdan was at the event.
Yes.
So I mean, this is to show you how seriously we take this as a city, that even from the topmost leadership level, everyone is involved and engaged and is on the ground to ensure that the industry gets past this. And also we have the best practices in place, and we're supporting it as much as we can from our side.
Yeah. No, it's definitely very reassuring to have this kind of an approach and the backing up. So I'm sure the events industry people who are tuned in right now would understand that we are strong, and the way forward is definitely positive. So for sure. Khalid, I have a question for you. Now, I know you've done the events in the past few months. What, according to you, is the way forward for events, and what's your advice to agencies or the other venues in Dubai? Because I know you have like one of the biggest venues, the most busiest, and that's going to happen very soon. So what's your advice for them?
See, I think one thing the pandemic made us recognize, I mean, we knew it even before the pandemic, is how big is the industry. I mean, live events is quite a very big industry. I mean, if you look at florist who does flowers in a wedding to a B2B exhibition organizer, this is how big is the industry. And everyone should realize also that each event segments will behave differently.
True.
Yeah, so the live events will behave differently, the weddings will behave differently, and the team, I mean, and everyone who's engaged in the industry needs to adapt to the new norm, which is basically contactless journey of your visitors. It might be not applicable, for example, for wedding. It will be applicable for exhibitions. Understanding your visitor, where they are coming from before the events will be applied for an exhibitions. It might not be applied, for example, for a DJ nights, for example, locally. So this is my advice. The people should relook at their events, segments, and each segments will have its own journey and its own measures to make it safe.
Yeah. Now, time and again we come across this point that this pandemic has brought the industry together, which was very important, and I believe that we as ILEA are trying to bring everyone together under one umbrella and keep them informed about the way forward, trying to connect with government entities like you guys, and trying to give them as much information as possible, so they know that the efforts put in by the government, the various entities, and the way forward. And of course, IT has played a major role. So things which I have learned a lot. I was not good at Zoom, but now I can play with Zoom. So yeah, things like these have come up. Majid, I have a question for you. Now, I know you guys are very proactive in your business communities, and I know that you guys conduct a lot of open houses to invite your current business partners, hear them out, have like open sessions where you invite external clients and engage with them on regular basis. Can you just tell us a bit more about this policy that you have in place?
Well, I think nowadays, it's on pre-COVID way. I think there was a lot of events that we did to support the community itself to be able to engage together. I think it's very critical and very important that we capitalize on the treasure that we have within our community. So there was at least more than 200 smaller events where it brought together businesses within themselves to be able to talk to each other. There were concerns from a lot of people that I don't know who's with me in the building, I don't know what they do, or I never met my neighbor or something like that. So we tend first on the first degree to deal with that issue and bring the community more together so that they are able to come together and pitch for bigger projects in the future. On the other hand, I think it's very important for us also to start preparing different platforms that will start offering our customers or our business partners products to the outside market. And this came out to be a project that we also started approximately 8 months ago, with basically a platform for people. It was mainly driven for the freelancers to be able to provide their services, which is called marketplace.ae. Mm-hmm. So this basically took our freelancers and gave them an opportunity to be able to pitch to different companies across the board who are looking for services from freelancers accordingly, but within a right environment. So these are some of the projects that we've worked on, and we are also on an ongoing basis, basically talking to our different stakeholders in the different industries to be able to understand what else do we need. Is the product that we are offering correct? Is the product that our registrar is offering meets the requirement? Do we need to change certain laws within the free zone so that we are able to accommodate the new businesses that are coming up? Especially with the fact that today it's unlike 20 years ago when it was straightforward. It was a media company or it was an IT company. Nowadays, with the convergence, it's a very blurred line between media and education and technology, and you'll find one company that fits on all these sectors. So we are discussing these things with a lot of people within our industry and with the new people that are coming from outside the city who are asking for new framework for doing business. So there are so many different things that are happening on the ground, and we tend to sit down with them. And if there is something that we can achieve through our framework, it's excellent. If it's not, then we engage with the concerned departments across the board. Any concerned department across the board. If it was the National Media Council or other related departments, for instance, for the content, or for or DTCM in this case for the smaller events. So we tend to have this kind of a relationship, flexible relationship with all of these departments after we met with these clients and we understood their challenges or their pain points.
Right. Right. No, it's actually good to know that people have direct access to authorities, to communities like you guys, and the same is coming from Alexander as well. So people have access to DED, and the same is coming from you, Isam, Khalid. That so we have access. We can definitely approach the authorities. It's not that they're not approachable. So it's a good thing to know, and the good part is people are listening. So all we need to do is just go ahead and inform them. So on that note, Majid, do you have any advice to our industry members going forward?
I think it's time to accelerate whatever strategies you are hoping would happen in the future. Bring them forward. Look at the different opportunities that are there. Try thinking outside the box, and try talking to us. Basically, if you have certain challenges that you require us to support you with, we are learning as much as you are. We are, trying to achieve this. A balanced approach towards companies today, and try to set up an environment that will help you grow your business and you being ready for the next wave of opportunities going forward.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And Alexander, as we discussed that, we will be, as ILEA Middle East, we will be working very closely with DED now, representing our industry members, the surrounding companies that all support the events in Dubai. So obviously we have a lot more detailed discussions going forward. And I'm sure we'll be receiving a lot of requests coming in from the industry members on stimulus packages, reliefs and measures, which I'm
Yeah.
sure we will be in touch with you. One piece of advice, if I may ask from your end.
Yeah, I think it is very important that companies or the industry sees the crisis and opportunities in crisis. I think the events industry is so different, as our esteemed speakers mentioned, that we now we use a lot of technologies. We now need to move into blended events or blended formats, virtual versus physical events. In fact, even before COVID-19, we were working with the retail sector to go digital, physical plus digital, because e-commerce is taking off. So every company now has to have a digital strategy, and this has accelerated. And His Excellency Majid mentioned about there are a lot of new business models coming in. DD is also proactively looking at how new business models can be registered as a trade license. So recently we gave licenses for cloud kitchens or real estate kitchens. As you know, just now are looking at delivering food, between the food services and delivery companies. So they are actually technology companies. So how do we give them a new license? So we have a new license activity called cloud kitchens or real estate kitchens, and we continuously work with the business community and the business models, new business models that come into Dubai, and work with them to come up with new activities that is not elsewhere classified. And the second point we are working now is that we have an initiative called Future Friendly Regulations. We are looking at best practices of how governments around the world are coming up with new business regulations to capture opportunities for the future. So, for example, one example we're working on is actually lab meat. If Dubai wants to play the game of a future center for innovation in food, we need to have friendly regulations that support this kind of activity. And this is something that we are working on, and we're going to share this initiative with all the regulators to say that in order for us to capture future opportunities, we need to ensure that our regulations are attractive and friendly to be competitive for the future.
Perfect. Thank you, Alexander. Khalid, you are very closely related to events, and you're always on ground, and I've seen you a lot more in action. What would be your advice to our community, the events and the entertainment industry going forward?
Yeah, I think for all the members in the association, I think that it's a tough time. And for sure, everyone need to make sure his cost is maintained to the to the minimum. They should make sure they are very efficient at this time and be ready for the future. I'm sure the future is going to be bright, and for sure nothing will replace live events. Yes, we do virtual, we do hybrid solutions. However, live events will remain, and the taste of live events and the experience that people go through during life, nothing will replace it.
True. No, that's a very positive thing, and it's always been that Dubai always bounces back, and it bounces back very strong. So definitely your advice, Sam, again your advice, the industry has to stay positive and stay strong. Before I end the session, Sam, a few words from your end to our industry, because we all look forward to you as the regulating authority. And there are a lot of questions that people have in mind. Of course, we have a time limitation, so we can't go into details of everything.
Sure.
But if you were to basically address them and tell them something about the future, what that would be?
I think, look, again, echoing what the esteemed panelists have been saying as well, which is, I think definitely the future is bright, and then if anything, Dubai's resilience has always been a proof point to that. And the way that the industry works together, I mean, it's a seamless synergy between the private and public sector to ensure that we have the best practice in place and ensure the businesses see the fruits at the end of this period of time as well. And I think what's important is we remain positive, and like I said, and like Khalid mentioned, live events cannot be replaced, right?
Sure.
But there are other opportunities that we should capitalize on. And one thing that I do advise as well is that once things start, inshallah, as soon as we get closer to seeing the positives at the end of this, is we should also look at a strategic approach. We should look at a long-term benefit as opposed to trying to quickly recover this period of time, because that actually will not be to anyone's benefit. So I think we need to have a very good long-term plan and vision in place, where we're looking at ensuring that the lessons that we've learned over here, everyone's tightening their belts now, trying to make sure that they take any opportunity, any business opportunity, and really see it, to the end. And I think that best practice should also still continue and be put into place beyond this period of time as well.
Yeah, perfect. No, and Dubai is opening doors to the world. Tourism has started again. So
yeah.
I don't see any reason that, people need to be worried about the future. Yes, the start is going to be a bit slow, but then I'm sure the way things already work over here, it's just going to bounce back. So I'd like to thank you, Isam, for spending time today with us and having and giving us insights about the future and talking about your role on behalf of DCTCM. To make sure that, we are in safe hands and the future is bright. Khalid, thank you very much for your time as well. And thank you for the support. Majid, thank you so much for joining us and for your time and all the insights you've given us on behalf of your business communities. Alexander, thank you very much. You're going to be loaded with a lot of emails coming your way shortly, I'm sure, after this session. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And we'll take a quick 5 minutes break over here. And we will get started with the next session, which will be focusing more on health and safety, guideline compliance, the way forward for the relaunch, and discussing about the crisis committee initiatives on behalf of ILEA in engaging with the government entities and the way forward. Thank you for tuning in. We'll take a short 5 minutes break and we'll be back soon. Thank you. Welcome back. And today we are discussing over here about the recently launched guidelines and the way forward for the relaunch of the events in Dubai. Before we go ahead with the next session, I'd like to introduce our panel speakers to you. We have Harmeek Singh, who's from Plan B Group, CEO and Chairman. We have Shelly Frost, who's the Director from The Fridge, Dubai. We have Steve Carney, who's the Managing Partner from Gallo Glass Health and Safety. And along with us is our President, Paul Berger, who's going to say a few words before we dive into the session. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Saif. Thank you to everybody who's listening for joining. I believe the first session this morning was very insightful, so a big thanks to everybody that participated on the panel earlier today. Before we kick off, I really just want to say a few thank yous and acknowledgements. We wouldn't be able to host this ILEA webinar without the support of Events Case and of course DXB Live. So a big thank you to the teams at Events Case and DXB Live for supporting this very useful and constructive webinar to do with events being relaunched in Dubai. And then also to acknowledge the contribution and support of our government here in the UAE, and in particular the DTCM, the DED, Dubai Media City, and of course our friends at the Dubai World Trade Center. So, really appreciate your time, giving up your time to join this webinar and to explain and to communicate, more importantly, to our industry how we are relaunching events in Dubai and getting that Dubai calendar going again. And I know the next session, we've got a great panel. So thank you to Shelly, Harmeek, and Steve for joining. I look forward to listening to this very carefully, and I'll give you some comments at the end. So Saif, that's from me. Over back to you.
Thank you. So the first session was basically talking about the newly launched guidelines and the government support. So we've got a lot of insights from DED today, and they've clearly mentioned that stimulus packages, waivers, deductions, deferrals are in place. We just need to approach them, and they have the committee which basically acknowledges the application, and they will explain us the way to apply. So feel free to send us all your requests at admin@ilea-me.com. And we'll do our best to connect you as quick as possible, maximum within 24 to 48 hours with the DED account manager, and you can take it forward. Now, also the first session has focused towards the positivity and the achievements, what Dubai has achieved as a city, and we need to look forward as the events and the entertainment industry. Now, this particular session is going to be a deep dive into the technicals of how we go forward. How do we manage the policies? How do we make sure that the guidelines have been implemented and the compliance? But before we get into all those details, I will go ahead and ask you my first question, Harmeek, is ILEA has come into force with the crisis committee, and you, along with me, have been appointed as taking care of the committee as the spokesperson. So what have you done, Harmeek, and what's the idea of this crisis committee going forward?
See, firstly, I thank ILEA and what is happening at the moment. And the crisis committee came into play when the events industry was having no directions. Looking at the fact that probably I come from the sector as well, but a lot of things that probably people don't know about the event sector is that how big the sector is altogether. Having a lot of things that probably had for the first 3 months was very difficult for us to even gauge where we are. And then having a lot of webinars and sessions that we were looking at, I was not a part of ILEA as a member as well, but looked upon that that was the only platform that could relate to our industry, and approached by a lot of different entrepreneurs, because I represent the entrepreneurs sector. So my friend Pash from Red Philo, Sujoy from Option One, Terry from Lighthouse Production, we were discussing and apparently got together with 300 plus companies pledging with us to look at what is it that probably we are looking at this point, because it's a collective approach. So direction not being there, a focus group was required. A crisis committee that was formed, I think it is a good mix of everybody coming together and representing the industry. It's not something that probably I'm going to just shy away from, but then again, events has always been the soul of the city and the country as well, for any region for that matter. We being not having authority that represents us directly was also a key feature that we all thought that it's time to all collectively stand together. And crisis committee has not looked upon the bigger sort of names over here. We are talking about a single shop that probably might have only 3 employees. We were speaking to people like freelancers from all the sectors. I was very happy to see what Dan Bolton was doing prior to this. I met Steve, Nathan, like different people. At this point, the crisis committee is the front end where we have made leaps and bounces with reaching out. The first thing is, and the first and the foremost, that our objective was to get recognized. So we've been reaching out, and that's what crisis committee is doing, and I can elaborate on that. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, Harmeek, I've worked with you in the past few months, and I see that you're very emotionally driven towards the industry, and you have been involved in a lot of welfare movements that you basically are helping the lower income groups and the workforces that surround and help the business communities for events. Can you tell us a bit more about what's going on and how you get involved with all of this?
See, at the point when, first of all, it is driven from where I come from. I have a homegrown, being a homegrown brand. I came to this part of the world, 17 years of hard work with $800 as my first salary. So I know where this belongs to. When we see the biggest and the foremost and the brightest of the events, a lot of efforts are going out from the lower income, the blue collar workers, who since the time the lockdowns happened, because of liquidity and because of reasons that probably we can understand, no work, no salary, no pay, I was also representing a big chunk for the Indian sector. And the Indian consulate and the embassy, we were working towards looking at, there were 650,000 people who were willing and who registered to go back because they didn't have anything that probably they could probably just survive on. And that triggered me. That was also something that probably nobody talks about them. They're not tech savvy. They don't have anything that they can actually relate to. So as somebody who represents that, I have, on a personal level, we've been working on giving them shelter and food and looking at if they can be replaced and get placement as well. Things look tough, but then again, that's where the crisis committee having a voice for them was very important. And at this point, I can assure you there's things are stepping up with how things are moving. But what we are providing as a crisis committee, what we're providing as ILEA at the moment is hope, which gets a lot of things together. And we all are hopeful that as the vision of our rulers and the way that Dubai has been so proactive on looking at coming back in the industry amongst the foremost in the world right now, we are gunning all guns blazing with a united front right now.
Nice. Good to know. Good to know. Shelly, I'm aware that you've done 5 virtual events and 7 hybrid or live events starting from June, July, and August when everyone was under lockdown. Can you share your experiences with us? How did this go about? The events themselves, the capacities, the permits. How did you go about managing this?
Yeah, hi, Steve.
Hi.
Well, we were driven after, as you said, Hamik, the initial shock and coming to terms with what had happened. You realize that you have an obligation towards those around you, in our case, the artists, the audiences, and also Choir Fest Middle East, which we've run for 8 years now, which also got cancelled at a few weeks' notice. So first of all were the virtual events, which, as Islam mentioned, really brought hope. So we ran 5 concerts there. We've had around 20,000 views online for those, and that was a wonderful way to bring the musicians out, and many musicians shared original material that they worked up, especially for those concerts. We then went with Choir Fest Middle East. We took the song that was supposed to be performed on Dubai Opera Stage. Mm-hmm. We took that virtual and had over 500 voices singing virtually, and we've had around 34,000 organic views there. And again, was very encouraging for the community. And I think then so that was during the lockdown period. But now, and I think what we're talking about today is where we have stood coming out of that. And we've taken what we learned there and applied that to more hybrid style events. So we were very excited to host the first live performance in the UAE on the 20th of July to obviously a live audience. And that was at the Fridge in Al Sakal Avenue. following on with then 6 concerts on a weekly basis in concrete with the support of Al Sakal Avenue.
Mhm.
Now, this was due in huge part to the vision and proactivity and positivity of the support from DTCM. So the concerts took place underneath the banner of Dubai Summer Surprises.
Right.
And it was something that was very much wanted to be trialed. We had around 700 live audience members during that time, approximately 100 per event, and still around 10,000, well, probably closer to 15,000 views online. So permitting happened quite smoothly. We were overwhelmed in the beginning, the thought of, my goodness, running a socially distanced event on a smaller, more grassroots level, what that would mean, and didn't want to put a foot out of place in any way, shape or form. So I'm here to encourage to say that actually running a socially distanced event is not as complex as it might seem. And it was really the arrival and departure that are the key things to watch out for. We found that people were very keen to come and enjoy a live event. And some people came to all events, actually, in the run-up. We also did find that people are very bad at socially distancing. So even though we've come from nearly 6 months of being told to keep, so that definitely needs to be monitored. People constantly need to be reminded when they're queuing to keep a distance. We ran the concerts in a restaurant-style setting with seats around tables. So once at tables, people could remove their masks and were quite free, could even get up and just move at their table if they were inspired by a particular song. So it actually, the whole hybrid thing was very successful and led to a really enjoyable evening.
Nice, good to know. Armik, as the spokesperson of ILEA Crisis Committee, now a lot of people have sent in questions like, what is the ILEA Crisis Committee doing? Do you feel responsible that you are in charge of this particular committee and this committee needs to deliver something to the industry, and how are you connecting with people on behalf of this committee?
See, it has been a huge responsibility, and since the time that probably I have actually diligently and religiously worked towards reaching out and seeing that what would be the steps that could bring relief to the industry at the moment, and I actually just voice it and back what Shirley just mentioned right now on socially distant events and hybrid events. We have been a part of that as well. But not everybody is that fortunate to actually just from the industry, because when we talk about exhibitions, when we talk about production houses, these are not the companies that probably would be or overnight being committed to themselves to being on digital platforms. And that's where the workforces and everything else that probably comes into play. We've reached out to economic department, and we went over there, and we had discussed and put our plea across where we were discussing about getting relief, not till September, but beyond September as well. And apparently that was a revelation for when we were talking to the director. He asked us, and that was something that probably was a wake-up call for us, that he asked us, so events is live events, right? I said no. And then I actually gave a list of what actually gets this platform such a big and that only just resonates with the fact that we had a small survey, which was only 300 companies that participated, and we were talking about a loss of business for roughly around 2.8 to 5.5 billion dirhams. This is also not something probably we are talking as a whole, but that's a loss to the economy. The loss, the economic loss to the taxes that could be brought in, roughly around 200,000 employees at stake. A lot of things that probably has been, that's why it has reached to the executive councils of Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We've reached out to the SME minister himself. He has very politely given us some time that probably we will be probably getting it, so that we can have our policies, our industry to have some policies as well. For the responsibility that I have right now, it's also to do with the fact that as an entrepreneur and looking at the fact that how do we actually just look at what are the relief that is required. A common factor that is required is liquidity. So there's no liquidity. I need to retain my workforce. I need to retain my employees. It's all good that probably we can look at a 50% or a 30% or a cut down on salaries and retaining my workforce. I'm responsible for them, as any entrepreneur is right now. But having no liquidity, I have my limitations. 7 months, no work. There's nothing that probably we can put it together. Then what do? I let them go. 50% would mean that probably people are not getting their rents to be 50%. All the bills are not 50%. So authorities have acknowledged this, but in small formats, we're getting relief. But we have reached out now to the UAE Banking Federation, because that's one thing that we require. Globally, this is a phenomenon right now that stimulus packages is deferring the installments and everything that probably comes with that, so that we have a 6 months holiday period. But if I get a business right now, if I get a project that probably is around 5 million, where do I get the 5 million from to probably even get that job done? So liquidity is important. We have tried to reach out, and the plea also states that we need to probably look at short-term loans. We need to look at least for the companies who were relevant and who were like streamlined before the COVID, and they had no black points. And we have got this responsibility not only towards the sector, but also towards our employees, towards the people who were working with us. So liquidity is also something that we are trying to get some answers on that will help the industry. And if not, then probably we are looking at a collective approach, that we are looking at the authorities who are very reciprocal on that fact, that I have seen that from Dubai tourism, from Abu Dhabi tourism, but that also brings in a question. We are always been a part of a sector. We have never been represented. So this is one thing that probably, and I might call the elephant in the room right now, but then again, events needs to be represented. It needs to have a ministry, if not an authority that probably represents, because our problems are not based on tourism. Our problems are very different. And I have not had a day that I have not taken this up and forward. And that's why I feel very responsible. And Saif, you've been a part of that. Thank you so much for being an able support on that. And the ILEA Crisis Committee, I think the first time ever I see that people talk to me that why are you in ILEA? But then again, now they see that the perspective is changing because we are doing certain things.
Right. No, it means a lot, Harmeek, that going forward, especially the petitions that have been represented to the executive councils and the way you've been making inroads with the UAE Banking Federation. That's very important because a lot of SME and small companies, they require liquidity at the moment to survive, and banks have to be more flexible. And a very, very valid point raised over there, like we need to have our own governing body which understands the problems of events. I think it's a very valid point that's raised over there. I'll get back to you on that. Steve, I have a question for you. Galloglass has been, I think, one of the first companies that have launched the guidelines for COVID-19. How the whole thought process was put in place, and how quick were you to react and release these guidelines?
Well, I suppose it would be easy for me to say that that as soon as this epidemic became a pandemic, we reacted rather quickly. But I have to say that, and the reason I say that is because we've been through epidemics before, not only sort of nationally, but also internationally. You know, we can remember the SARS disease that was threatening. That was an epidemic. You know, in the UK a few years back there was mad cow disease. You know, and also we've had to react to the likes of 9/11 and whatever. All of these things affected the industry in some ways, that not just financially. So through each of those kind of issues, we were, as a health and safety consultancy, you wouldn't be surprised to learn that, you know, we had to react pretty quickly to those issues because we knew events would come back. Now, of course, nobody could have predicted what's happened from March this year, certainly around the globe. You know, those issues were, although some internationally before, nothing has hit the world like this. But we still treated the epidemic pre-pandemic as a challenge, knowing full well at some stage events are going to come back. Of course, the scale of the thing just rocketed so much that, you know, there were times, I think, sort of, you know, midsummer where we were thinking, really, are we actually going to be able to get back to what we are used to? And then we realized, actually, you know what? Do we really want to go back to the way it was? And so we created, as you say, almost immediately our return to events guidelines, which we distributed, and again, ILEA bought into it straight away, and Hamid and others, you mentioned Dan Bolton and people like that, they bought into it straight away, and they realised that unless we were going to talk collectively with the industry, we really weren't. We were just going to be maverick. And there's no point having guidance if nobody reads it, and more importantly, if nobody contributed to it. So our guidance was set out in a very simplistic way: pre-event, installation, live event, and post-event. Well, I'll come back to post-event in a minute, but the pre-event stuff was kind of highlighting in I don't know whether you might call it manual form, but very simplistic ways of what to look out for pre an event, post-COVID. And we're not going to get post-COVID for a long time, but we are going to get live events back while COVID's here. And the answer really to the question was, how can we manage the pandemic and its effects and still run events? So the guidance, although the issues were highlighted with regards to who do we talk to first, and engaging with local authority and government and Dubai Tourism, for example, who've also been very supportive, was the way forward. But the problem came when we didn't have a voice, and ILEA picked up that mantle, and I think Hamid just said it earlier on, that the voice was kind of a little bit louder when we got collective, and that question often gets put to me: why are you a member of ILEA? And with the crisis committee, the technical committee, and there will be people watching here that say, well, I don't know what you're doing. Well, Saif, we've been through this, through the guidance ourselves, the 4 stages. Everybody has an opportunity to be able to interact and to tell us what they want within a published guidance. And if that published guidance is going to be legislative, then more the better. So that's kind of where we went, and that guidance is available. I mean, it's not a secret. It's I think ILEA will send out published guidance, but through, if anybody wants to contact me, I will share the guidance with you. It's not rocket science, and it's not secret. Nothing in there isn't out in the public domain, but it may well give people who are a little bit worried or a little bit scared about how to put an event on a bit more confidence. And that's where we saw the guidance adding value, Safe.
Thank you, Steve. So yeah, actually, the point made by Steve is how ILEA immediately reacted and got in the crisis committee in place, and then we got a technical committee in place. Harmeet, can you please tell us something about the technical committee of ILEA? What's their vision and how they're basically moving forward?
I think the technical committee has a lot more responsibility when it comes down to the actual events to come back. And what I've seen is a lot of hard work, and I know that Steve was amongst the first ones that I read his documents and everything, and it only just triggers, that people are watching out for each other. But then again, having not being not working together would only mean that probably it remains amongst few. But right now, as a platform, there's a guiding light that we can actually look from the technical committee, working with the government and the authorities, so that there's a legislative that could be formed. There's a document that we all know that we have to follow as a Bible, because that's what is going to be. We have to not look at that we need to only have work come back. I can assure you that at this point, we all, from the industry, we are all very hungry. We all want to do anything and anything that probably comes our way. But that's not, and I've heard people actually selling masks as well. So the fact is that it needs to be brought back, not for the fact that probably it has to be brought back. It has to be brought back with the fact that it is a long-term approach, and having any set patterns with the safety and security. The technical committee is working in the right direction for me. And it is not only about the global phenomenons, but then again, how it is adapted in the local format. And it is related to this sector in this region. And I think it's kudos to him and the team right now with the bringing a lot of information to us to actually look at. So that's where, when I'm front-ending and discussing and with you and the team, we are having a back end, which is a technical committee that, oh guys, when you're ready, this is the document that we are talking to. And the government is also acknowledging that.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. This particular document, I think, will help all our industry members, professionals throughout the UAE, because this is going to be the document you follow going forward, and any size of events or entertainment, if you're going out for a DJ night or anything of that sort, would be detailed in this particular document. So yeah, definitely that's going to be a plus point, and I think it's going to be a bonus for the industry that we're working on at the moment. Shelly, I know your business is falling under the SME segment, and the past few months have been tough for all of us. You have done a lot of events recently, but how are you surviving?
Yeah, I think that there's something that we're all facing. I mean, it's encouraging to hear about everything going on and the measures, but I think I probably echo many SMEs on the ground, where even when we were able to go live, that doesn't mean that we were going concerned financially. So when we're going live under social distancing measures, at this stage for us it's impossible to do anything but hopefully break even, which obviously is concerning at this point. So looking at ways of how to move beyond that is key. We're looking at surviving by obviously having taken really drastic measures. Moving forward, looking at being really focused, staying agile, staying in touch with anything, any potential help that is available, and looking at ways. One thing that we're looking at is pay-per-view. So monetizing for the first time, taking that step to monetize the online views. And so, I guess experimenting in various ways. But, it's extremely tough out there. No one can say any different, but nonetheless staying as proactive as possible. And the thing that made those concerts possible were partnerships. Partnerships with, in my case, AV Concepts, Desert River Event Rentals, Shure for microphones. And I think that that's what we see moving forward as an industry, is really, truly supporting one another and working together to... I reflect very much what Issa mentioned earlier on in the earlier session. He said that the learnings of coming together as a community, that he hopes that those are not lost moving forward. And I really echo that. I think that this experience challenges not just our businesses, it challenges our entire approach to life, what's important, what we believe in, our ethics, our morals, and as work comes back, if we care about one another and we care about this industry and this group that is the event industry, that we then watch out for each other, share what there is, make sure that we each have enough to survive, and really have a different approach to the terribly focused, maybe more competitive streak that can come in better times. And I really do hope that that's something that we will maintain moving forward, because it will make us stronger and it makes our community stronger.
Yeah, perfect. You know what, Shelly, what you've rightly said, I've heard a lot of times said by Harmeek that, united we stand and divided we fall. It's a very old proverb, but it makes a lot of sense. Before the pandemic, we were all scattered. Like ILEA was nowhere in the picture and everyone was busy focusing towards their businesses. The pandemic hits and then everyone starts facing ILEA and they're like, what are you guys doing? So now I feel that we are putting in our best efforts together. We're putting in the committees together. We're bringing the industry leaders together to give us a helping hand to support the industry back in return. And Harmeek, you always reiterate the word that, in this hour, we all need to stay united. Now, what's your thought process behind this? And going forward, when the events industry opens, is this scenario going to be the same? Or again, everyone's going to just get busy with their, routine and things will just be, back to normal and forget about the unity? Let's go ahead with the business.
Firstly, I read a lot of emotion in Shirley's discussion point that she made, and I echo that as well, because it's about time that probably we all realize that what are we trying to actually build upon over here as an industry, as a sector. First of all, I must say that there's a big gap in the market when it comes down to fair practices.
Mhm.
There's a big gap in the market when it comes down to what I have proposed, and which is something that I would like to announce as well. We are having a workshop on the 19th, and we're discussing about way forward, which I'm going to elaborate. But then again, the industry needs to stick it up right now, because it's not about blowing somebody else's candle is going to make yours brighter, because we all need to sustain a model. If I am not going to be there, it's going to make a big dent, but then again, somebody else surviving. It's an ecosystem. For me, it's a three-point approach, and that can only happen if we are united. First is survival. The second is getting into a sustainable model, and third is growth. And what Steve and Paul just mentioned, it's not going to come back soon. It's not going to be that probably you jump into it that, okay, now from the last quarter, we are all going to be like back to normal. No, it has to be. If we have not learned from what has happened, then it's a wasted exercise. You're never going to have the world stop ever again, I hope. But then again, if this has happened, we can be a refined version of who we were. There was never an approach that I've never met, Shirley. I've heard about, and yes, we all know each other, that we all exist. But then again, now looking at people like Sujoy from Option One, or Pash from Red Philo, or for that matter, Terry from Lighthouse, we used to compete. And I have been a keynote speaker for last 2 years about collaborations. So suddenly I'm right, actually. So collaboration right now, it's not about competition. Competition should be erased, because we need to have enough. If there's bread, we need to share it. It should not be that I should be getting all the events. I don't want to do that. And I don't want to actually just step on somebody's toes as well. And that's why I think the government bodies have also understood that. Looking at the fact that probably we are, as a private sector, we compete with the government-owned companies as well, which has been clearly mentioned now, which was a statement that was being created or released very recently, that the government-owned companies should not compete with the private sector, because it's going to be unfair.
True.
And that is something that probably brings in the fairness. And I think that the industry at this point needs to hold hands together. Success and the version that the lost glory of the event sector will come back on its own.
Well said. Well said. True. Steve, I have a question for you. Are you comfortable going back to an event?
Well, another one, you mean? I mean, that's the good thing about it. I think Shelley's already mentioned it. Events are happening as we speak, and they have been for a number of weeks. And the relaunch is a great thing. But, how many people really want to go back to or want to go to a rock concert and watch it on the TV? How many award ceremonies? I don't want to receive an award, and nobody be in the room. So we need to get back to people in the room. We need to have delegates. We need to have exhibitions. We need to have rock concerts and sporting events. The only way we can do that, obviously, is by producing certainly guidance and documentation, which we spoke about, which is reflective of the day. It can't be, well, we used to do it this way. Well, we're not going to do it that way anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to do it in a post-SARS or a current SARS environment, COVID environment. So, yeah, I'm absolutely confident. And again, I look at I was in a restaurant in Dubai last week, and a group of guys came in. They weren't socially distancing. They were crowded around one table. There's maybe 12 of them around there, and there was no PPE. And of course, management weren't telling them to sit down or to move away, etc. So that's pushed that particular restaurant out of favor with me. That's not us. We're professional event providers, suppliers, managers, etc. And I think an event managed properly, which clearly that restaurant wasn't, would be something that I would be confident of attending. And it's not just me. I kind of feel, and have done right the way through the whole pandemic, the last 6 months, I have always been positive. And I think, Hamid would know, even through the technical committee, it's about positivity. So positivity creates confidence, I'm sure. But we can be as confident as we like, but are we then passing that on to the guys on the ground? If our technical suppliers, if the guys, the freelancers or the technicians aren't confident going into a space, then you can bet your bottom dollar that the attendees or guests, they're not going to be confident either. So I suppose going back to what everybody said there, that collaborative approach of being positive, don't read social media. I mean, there's so many people being negative and telling us the world's over, that's it, we're all out of work, it's finished, etc. Yeah, it's tough, you know what, but you will be remembered. I mean, it's a thing that was said in the war. I mean, Hamid loves his phrases, but, it was said, during the Second World War, you'll be remembered for what happens after this is past. And that's where my confidence comes from. Our clients need to be confident that we're confident. And so, yeah, the answer to your question in a roundabout way, yeah, bring it on.
Good, amazing. Now, I know you have been involved with the UFC event at Yas Island. So can you share your experiences, your responsibility, and what was the success rate of the implementation of your guidelines for that event?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously that was the first major event back since March, really, and it was probably, I think, Declan, my lead guy on the job, came back and said it was the best event he'd ever worked on. Now, let's be fair, we're safety consultants. We're not the glamorous end of the industry, but at the end of the day, there's positives and negatives from everything, and we see that on a daily basis. But from that UFC job, and fair play to Flash, they allowed us to have free reign to kind of implement our guidance in a really kind of stringent way. And in fairness to the Abu Dhabi government, they also supported us, and so did Yas Island. So the site itself was locked down, and nobody outside of the owner of UFC, everybody had to go into 14-day isolation. So that was driving everybody nuts in the hotel. But the hotels were isolated as well. So nobody came within that ring. There was upwards of 3,500 people within that ring, all locked down for 14 days. We did things like inductions through Zoom. We've never done that before. And it was great. And, it created a bit of nobody wants to talk through a little square box to each other. But if that's the way we've got to do it in the future, then let's do it well. And I think that's probably where our team excelled themselves, and we were the suppliers on the site were so receptive to it. I think it goes back to what Hamid said again, we're in it together. So if we normally on site, we'd end up being the bad guys, put your hard hats on, put your high vis on, da-da-da. But in this circumstance, certainly at Yas, everybody realized that actually we were groundbreaking here. If we get this wrong, we could put events back months, if not years. And so that's kind of where the inspiration was. And there was 500 or 600 contractors on site, and that then increased, as I said, to right up to, including hotel staff and service staff, etc., to 3,500. So that's no small event, that. If you look at it, the fact there was no spectators, but, still having 3,500 people on site. And unless somebody can tell me differently, as we speak today, nobody walked off that site with the virus or with symptoms. So I say, to Flash, to UFC, and to all the contractors and suppliers on site, there were no injuries, touch wood. There were very few incidents. Again, it's an event site. Of course, there's going to be incidents, but everybody kind of felt that they were pulling together as a team. And 80 million people watched that through pay-per-view. So that, and I think Dana White, the owner of UFC, made a statement in the press saying that Abu Dhabi is the center of the fight world now, taking that mantle away from Las Vegas. And he sent a lovely message to our team, thanking us for the professional way in which we and Flash, of course, managed that whole process. And that, to me, was probably as good as it got for me. And again, we go back to that confidence element. Everybody, I think, walked off that site, and they're starting another one at the Etihad Arena as we speak now. They're all in isolation, going for event number 2. They're all keen to get back to work and a safe way of doing it. So yeah, I mean, there are a number. I think the trade press is going to, TPME, going to be doing a piece on it, with all the details. But yeah, that UFC event we were nervous going into it, but I wouldn't let anybody else know that. 'Cause that confidence is there, you know. Let's even if it's a front, which in a way it was, but when we walked away with the success that proved, it means that we can do it again, and hopefully other members of the GCC region will see how successful that was, and have the confidence to support events in other regions now.
Fully agree on that. Thank you, Steve. I have a question for you, Shelley. I've been asked to specifically ask this question. Do you think live events are at a risk at the moment?
I don't think live events are at risk as to never happening again. Live events that we may sit forever in a hybrid situation. No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
We crave connection. We know that. So yeah, I've seen pieces written about defending live, and I don't think we need to defend live. Live is here to stay. I think what we do need to defend, however, there's been quite a lot of talk about, and we are concerned, freelancers play a really important role within the events industry, and certainly with what we do within entertainment, it plays a massive role. So protecting the freelancers is important. And as I say, much has been said about that. Generally, freelancers, while it is super tough, tend to be more buoyant potentially than, I want to come back to all of those SMEs again. And the essential, I think the concern through this is the potential brain drain that happens. Mm-hmm. Those unseen faces, I think of administratively in my own organization, the incredible amount of knowledge tied up in people that we don't see, that enable events to be turned around at these ridiculous deadlines that we get given smoothly, quickly. You know, there's someone in my office who will know exactly who to call, who's available on a Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m., who doesn't have teaching or X, Y, Z. But that's just an example. And I think that is certainly collectively one of our biggest fears, is how to protect the integrity of the SMEs and this priceless experience that has been built up with individuals over 7, 10, 15 years, and how not to lose that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's basically the strength of our industry, our community. Harmeek, you mentioned something about a workshop coming up on the 19th of September. Can you give us more insights about that?
See, the workshop on 19th was something that we were looking forward for, because for the fact that we are talking about now. The workshop itself has got ILEA board members and the regional heads as well joining in with us, because we are just new entrants at this point, and we want to have what is going to be taking as a positives from this period, looking at a sustainable model. So we have got things that we have put together as a deck for the industry to work on. First and foremost is to do creating an ecosystem with the certification. Because certification would only mean that probably if there's a certification system that comes together, if there's anybody who has not been aligned with the norms and the guidelines of fair practice in the industry, it might be anything. It might be things that there's no Copyright Act right now. There's nothing that probably people have been like following it. So there's a D-bar element to that, which creates something which probably has got a bracket to our industry right now, which is non-existent. And for that workshop, we are looking forward for around 20 different things that we have put together, like from our side and other people as well, which we would like to discuss, and to see that probably we can have those points being come into play simultaneously. So as our industry, we may call it like a building that's under renovation right now. So why don't we actually just make sure that probably we are replacing the things that probably are not required and making it as good as new when we come out, rather than having a think again, oh, we should have done that. So this is to do with the sustainable model beyond and post-COVID that we want to talk about. Also to update that what is our strategy at this point, where are we? So we would like to probably have an acknowledgement from the board members and to discuss with other people who are joining in from the region to see that what they have been doing. Knowledge sharing would also help us. That is a very important feature that we are looking at for the 19th, to make sure that probably we can then announce and look forward that there's a thing that probably we have initiated, which is going to be coming to reality.
Perfect. No, I fully agree with you. Education is definitely an important aspect for our industry, and we need to keep the movement going on. And hopefully on the 19th, when we have this session, we have more information to get back to the industry. ILEA members are more than welcome to join us for this session. please send us your requests on admin@ilea-me.com, and depending on the space availability, we'll get back to you. My last question to you, Harmeek, is what's your vision about the industry? What would you suggest?
See, Shirley just mentioned about the talent, and when I had this discussion with Dan and Lily as well, for the simple reason that probably there's a lot of creativity that's been actually there available for this region. We were chosen as the most creative city by UNESCO, Dubai being, and this region has actually just made sure that probably 80% of the awards and from the Middle East have been won by Dubai and Abu Dhabi for that matter. When it comes down to having this being lost, I remember one thing, that when I came to this part of the world in my first job interview, and after that innumerous, like around 10, 12 that I had to give, they only asked me one thing: what's your UAE experience? So why are we trying to not look at this experiences that probably people have got, the creative side of this as well, to be like retained in a way? Otherwise, people who are going to replace them, or people who have to be brought back, are not going to be probably adjusting or probably aligning to the vision of, we are a dynamic industry and a country as well. So I think the future and the vision for the industry is, again, we need to probably look at this not being a one-off. We need to look at that guidelines and brackets have to be informed, so that there's an industry representation. An industry representation plus everybody acknowledges and adheres to what we are talking about, not going behind somebody who's probably getting a job or a project, whatever. That needs to be a fair practice to be brought into this. My vision, if we have that collectively, there's enough business for all of us. There's enough reasons for everybody to grow and sustain, where probably the region is growing. I'm not talking only UAE, but the region is growing and exponentially. I think that during the next phase, which is going to be 2021, once this year is over, we have a lot to look forward for. And anybody and everybody who's brought in anything for this part of the world, they should be a part of it, rather than looking at the probably, oh, that company is not available, or people have left. So that's where a sustainable model now, a survival mode and a sustainable model, so that this doesn't happen to us again.
Well said. Well said. Well, good luck to you with the crisis committee and keeping us updated, and the industry and the wider community with how we're moving forward, and ILEA making some movements and enhancements for the industry. Shelley, what's your one piece of advice before we finish the session?
I think that we hear a lot about positivity, and it is an important aspect of life. But I think I also just want to share that it is, and I said this at the beginning, this is such a hard period for our industry, along with many others. And there's a lot of sacrifice involved, and I think we're all in that together. Even for myself personally, I've given up my home, and I now live from friend to friend, because that's what I need to do in order to be able to sustain my business as best as I can through this long period. And I know many other people within the industry that have done similar things. So while it is incredibly difficult, so it's not like we're paying a price and learning, but I am still positive. And I wanted to say why I'm positive. I'm positive because we live in an incredibly dynamic country with dynamic leadership. And I've been here for 23 years, and the UAE and Dubai has never failed me in terms of moving forward, picking up the gauntlet quicker, smarter, slicker than anywhere else. So there is nowhere else I would rather be right now than here. Secondly, the event industry is very positive in its steps forward. So, we need to start talking real measures as to how, where the small amounts of revenue that we require to survive through the coming months is going to come from. And I think that comes through continued communication, as you have so well laid out, with authorities moving forward and really keeping it connected. But lastly, I want to say that most of all, when I'm sat at the Middle East Event Awards, which is one of my favorite nights of the year, and I look around that room when we used to be in it, and I see, because we support so many different events, I see the AV companies, the event organizers, just all of the suppliers, and only we know between us what goes on behind the scenes. The unbelievable feats that get achieved, the awful clients, all the terrible last-minute issues that have to get solved. And I'm bowled over by the resilience, the creativity, but the ability to manage stress, the ability to manage change, the ability to move on its feet and to create beauty where normally there's just a sand patch. Nobody does it better than this industry, which I'm extremely proud to be part of. So I do feel in closing that if anybody can get through this period and out the other side to fuller greatness, then it is the event industry and our colleagues.
Very well said. Very well said. I fully agree with that. Steve, any piece of advice from your end, health and safety or in general?
Well, I suppose the overriding factor, and an awful lot of people have been kind of scratching their heads what to do, particularly over lockdown, and I do see an awful lot of people receiving further training, and training is something that is often undervalued by when you're busy, and often it's the first thing to be cut off a budget, and probably the last thing to be taken as seriously as I'd like it to. So I think the advice would be, if you have got downtime now, please look at retraining or training or further training, etc. There has been a multitude of webinars, and there's a lot of free training out there, as well as cost-effective training. It will advance not only the individual's knowledge, but it will also give you a more competitive edge, particularly in the freelance market. So training and future development of your skill set is something that I think people should be aware of. The other bit is, don't be afraid to ask. At the moment, I mentioned before the perils or the social media scaremongering that goes on, and you see it day by day, and it really is something that you have to switch off from. Ask the question of the people who probably, if they don't know the answers, will be able to find out the answers. And and organizations such as ILEA tap into the best skill sets in the region. So why not go to one body who's representative of us all? Be compassionate. I think that's the other thing. We talked about competitive pricing. Harmeet was saying there, it's very difficult at this time to be competitive. I appreciate that, but unfortunately, it's a world in which Shelley's finding out more and more that people are going to go by the way. We're going to lose companies, and so I think the compassionate edge is great. We shouldn't lose the competitive edge, but we need to be compassionate. And I may well lose out to a job that is better suited to somebody else. Equally, so might you. But if I'm up against somebody who's charging half the price that I'm charging, then in reality, then we lose the credibility and the value. You devalue your own brand. And thirdly, the last thing is as I said, be positive. Support campaigns. The We Make Events campaign is international. It's global. It's those campaigns with a collective voice. Yes, we are Dubai and GCC based, but we're a one world voice. And surely the louder we shout, the more chance we've got of people listening. And that's my positive advice to everybody.
I think, Steve, you nailed it. The louder we shout. I think the industry is coming together. As part of ILEA, I can feel that as well. We have a very good participation coming in from different industry sectors, different members. Our member portfolio is rising up, and everyone wants to come and join hands in a fight against these difficult times. Before we end the session, I'd like to hand it over to Paul for a quick thanks, and then we'll conclude the session. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Saif. Yeah, I mean, look, at this session, and just in summary, I just want to acknowledge our committees, crisis committee led by Harmeet, and very well represented today on this panel. Steve on the technical committee, I know you're representing them. Great work that we're doing there, and how we can bring back events in a responsible way. And I think it is all about being responsible. And then obviously listening to Shelley, who's very representing the SMEs, and it's very clear, we're all struggling, we're all suffering, and in particular the SMEs. And ILEA, look, be clear about ILEA was not set up by ILEA. It wasn't set up by myself or the board. It was set up 6-7 years ago in Dubai by event companies who wanted an association. It's grown now to over 130 companies that want an association. It exists for the industry, exists for the members. ILEA's goals are no different from anybody else in our industry. ILEA's goals going in COVID was first of all survival. We want to survive as an association, and secondly, to come out stronger as an association, to be more relevant, to give back more to the industry, to be there for the industry. And our objectives as ILEA now today are to come out, to survive COVID and come out that much stronger. And I think that's the message that everybody is saying here on the panel. It is about survival. It's also about resetting ourselves, resetting our goals, resetting our objectives, and as businesses, as event professionals, to come out stronger when we come through this dreadful pandemic. And we have many challenges. I think the message here really kept coming across from Shelley is that events are coming back, events are happening, they're different, and the challenge we find as an industry now is how do we monetize from those events, monetizing it from an income perspective, and how do we monetize those government grants and support that we're getting that have been given back to us by our various government bodies. And it's all about how we can survive and monetize those savings and monetize that income that is being relaunched today with the introduction of events. So look, as ILEA, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Safe and DXP Live and Events Case for putting this together. It's really appreciative, and we look forward to the next one. So thank you to the panelists, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. So before we end the session, I'd like to inform all of you guys, we will be going ahead and announcing a special virtual event that will be focusing on the Abu Dhabi market. We'll be getting panel speakers from DCT and other government entities from Abu Dhabi. As soon as that's finalized, we will announce it to you. And as ILEA, we're running continuous events. We're coming up with a yoga event, which is scheduled for the 19th of September. In these harsh timings, we all need to come together and, just breathe out and discuss our problems. And together as a community, we stand strong. So that's the message from all of us. Stay positive, we stay strong, and we stay together. Thank you very much, Harmeek. Thank you, Shelley and Steve and Paul for joining us today. Today's session, we'll conclude it over here, and we look forward to having you on board again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saif.